Hello, how are you? Welcome back. Okay, so chapter 8 we're moving on to, and yesterday, chapter 7, what a roller coaster, what an adventure we went on with Danny. And I think the next chapter we're going to find out where Danny's father is, and the next chapter is called The Pit. I wonder where Danny's father is. Okay, so we won't move on to that quite yet, though. We'll have a little bit of Roald Dahl chat first. Now, do you remember I talked yesterday about the operation that Roald Dahl had on his back and his hip? Now, he had a bad back and a bad hip because he had that bad accident when he was flying an aeroplane. Remember? Shot down over Libya. Never let the truth get in the way of a good story. Remember that bit as well. So shot down over Libya he was because he was flying his aeroplane and he had to crash it. And he was very, very tall. And cockpits of aeroplanes are actually very, very small. And he used to have to really kind of crush himself up, fold himself into the small space in the cockpit. And I think that had something to do with the accident, like not that causing the accident, but that put more impact maybe onto his back. So he was very, very tall. And I think that also being very tall was another reason that he was inspired for a character like the BFG. Because we found out about his friend, Wally Saunders, a few days ago, who also looked a bit like the BFG. He had these fantastic ears. And then I think the height element of it came from Roald Dahl himself. So on the internet, it says that Roald Dahl was 6 foot 6 inches tall. I'm afraid he wasn't. He was actually 6 foot 5 3/4 inches tall. He was very particular about the 3/4 inches. So much so that when he had got his passport, he made sure they wrote in his passport that he had that extra 3/4 inches. See, I am a shorty. So I could understand, maybe me being particular that I might be an extra 3/4 inches, but he was already really tall, but he made sure people knew he was really, really tall. And there's this great kind of like you have a tape measure, or maybe at home you have a little notches that you draw in the wall and then write your age and how high you are at that age, and it goes up and up and up. There's something a little bit like that at the Roald Dahl Museum. But this, instead of having just people's names that work at the museum, it's listed all the way up it, all different characters from Roald Dahl books. Now, Roald Dahl, on that list of how high people are, how tall people are, he is taller than Danny. We all know what book Danny's from. He was taller than the Grand High Witch. What book is that from? I wonder. He was taller than Bruce Bogtrotter. Do you know what book that one's from? He was taller than Miss Honey. He was taller than Mr. and Mrs. Twit. He was taller than Farmer Bean. What story is Farmer Bean from? So he's taller than all of these people. He wasn't as tall as an Oompa Loompa standing on top of another Oompa Loompa. So two Oompa Loompas are taller than Roald Dahl. That's a little bit of like Roald Dahl trivia. How very exciting. But I think it's time for chapter 8. I can't wait to find out what's happened to Danny's father. So let's have a little look. Chapter 8. Oh, the stories disappeared. Technology, what a nightmare. Okay, so the pit. I cannot possibly describe to you what it felt like to be standing alone in the pitchy blackness of that silent wood in the small hours of the night. The sense of loneliness was overwhelming. Silence was as deep as death. The only sounds were the ones I made myself. I tried to keep absolutely still for as long as possible to see if I could hear anything at all. I listened and listened. I held my breath and listened again. I had a queer feeling that the whole wood was listening to me. Trees and the bushes, the little animals hiding in the undergrowth, and the birds roosting in the branches. All were listening. Even the silence was listening. Silence was listening to silence. I switched on the torch. A bright beam of light reached out ahead of me like a long white arm. That was better. Now, at any rate, I could see where I was going. Keepers could also see. I didn't care about the keepers anymore. The only person I cared about was my father, and I wanted him back. I kept the torch on and went deeper into the wood. Dad, I shouted. Dad, it's Danny. Are you there? I didn't know which direction I was going in. I just went on walking and calling out, walking and calling. Each time I called, I would stop and listen, but no answer came. After a time, my voice began to go all trembly. I started to say silly things like, "Oh, Dad, please tell me where you are. Please answer me, please. Oh, please." And I knew that if I wasn't careful, the sheer hopelessness of it all would get the better of me, and I would simply give up and lie down under the trees. "Are you there, Dad? Are you there?" I shouted. "It's Danny." I stood still, listening, listening and listening. And in the silence that followed, I heard, or I thought I heard, a faint, oh so faint, sound of a human voice. I froze and kept still. Yes, there it was again. I ran towards the sound. "Dad," I shouted, "it's Danny, where are you?" I stopped and listened again. This time the answer just loud enough for me to hear the words. "I'm here," the voice called. "Over here." It was him. I was so excited my legs began to get all shaky. "Where are you, Danny?" my father called out. "I'm here, Dad. I'm here. I'm coming." With the beam of the torch shining ahead of me, I ran towards the voice. The trees were bigger here and spaced farther apart. The ground was a carpet of brown leaves from last year and was good to run on. I didn't call out any more after that. I simply dashed ahead. All at once, his voice was right in front of me. "Stop, Danny, stop!" he shouted. I stopped dead. I shone the torch around the ground. I couldn't see him. "Where are you, Dad?" "I'm down here. Come forward slowly, but be careful. Don't fall in." I crept forward. Then I saw the pit. I went to the edge of it and shone the light downward where my father was. I was sitting on the floor of the pit. He was sitting on the floor of the pit. He looked up into the light and said, "Hello, my marvellous darling. Thank you for coming. Are you all right, Dad?" "My ankle seems to be broken," he said. "It happened when I fell in." The pit had been dug in the shape of a square with each side about 6 feet long. But it was the depth that was so awful. It was at least 12 feet deep. The sides had been cut straight down into the earth, presumably with a mechanical shovel, and no man could have climbed out of it without help. "Does it hurt?" I asked. "Yes," he said. "It hurts a lot, but don't worry about that. The point is, I've got to get out of here before morning. The keepers know I'm here, and they're coming back for me as soon as it gets light." Did they dig the hole to catch people?" "Yes," he said. I shone my light around the top of the pit and saw how the keepers had covered it over with sticks and leaves, and how the whole thing had collapsed when my father stepped on it. It was a kind of trap that hunters in Africa dug to catch wild animals. "Do the keepers know who you are?" I asked. "No," he said. "Two of them came and shone a light down on me, but I covered my face with my arms and they couldn't recognize me. I heard them trying to guess. They were guessing all sorts of names, but they didn't mention mine. Then one of them shouted, 'We'll find out who he is all right in the morning, my lad.' And guess who's coming out with to fish up to guess who's coming with us to fish you out?" I didn't answer. I didn't want them to hear my voice. Well, we'll tell you who's coming. Mr. Victor Hazel himself is coming with us to say hello to you. And the other one said, Boy, I hate to think what he's going to do when he gets his hands on you. They both laughed, and then they went away. Ouch, my poor ankle. Have the keepers gone, Dad? Yes, he said. Gone for the night. I was kneeling on the edge of the pit. I wanted so badly to go down and comfort him. That would have been madness. What time is it? He said. Shine the light down so I can see. I did as he asked. It's 3:10, he said. I must be out of here before sunrise. Dad, I said. Yes. I brought the car. I came in the baby Austin. You what? I wanted to get here quickly, so I just drove out of the workshop and came straight here. He sat there staring at me. I kept the torch pointed to one side of him so as not to dazzle his eyes. You mean you actually drove the baby Austin? Yes. You're crazy, he said. You're absolutely plumb crazy. It wasn't difficult, I said. You could have been killed, he said. If anything had hit you in that little thing, you'd have been smashed to smithereens. It went fine, Dad. Where is it now? Just outside the wood, on the bumpy track. His face was all puckered up with pain, and as white as a sheet of paper. Are you all right? I asked. Yes, he said, I'm fine. He was shivering all over, even though it was a warm night. If we could get you out, I'm sure I could help you to the car, I said. You could lean on me and hop on one leg. I'll never get out of here without a ladder, he said. Wouldn't a rope do? I asked. A rope, he said. Yes, of course. A rope would do it. There's one in the baby Austin. It's under the back seat. Mr. Pratchett always carries a tow rope in case of a breakdown. I'll get it, he said. Wait here, Dad. I left him and I ran back the way I had come, shining the torch ahead of me. Found the car, lifted up the back seat. The tow rope was there, tangled up with the jack and the wheel brace. I got it out and slung it over my shoulder. I wriggled through the hedge and ran back into the wood. Where are you, Dad? I called out. Over here, he answered. With his voice to guide me, I had no trouble finding him this time. I've got the rope, I said. Good. Now tie one end to the nearest tree. Using the torch all the time, I tied one end of the rope around the nearest tree. I lowered the other end down to my father in the pit. He grasped it with both hands and hauled himself up into a standing position. He stood only on his right leg. He kept his left foot off the ground by bending his knee. Jeepers, he said, this hurts. Do you think you can make it, Dad? I've got to make it, he said. Is the rope tied properly? Yes. I lay on my stomach with my hands dangling down into the pit. I wanted to help him pull him up as soon as he came within reach. I kept the torch on him all the time. I've got to climb this with hands only, he said. You can do it, I told him. I saw his knuckles tighten as he gripped the rope. Then he came up, hand over hand, and as soon as he was in reach, I got hold of one of his arms and pulled for all I was worth. He came over the top edge of the pit, sliding on his chest and stomach, him pulling on the rope and me pulling on his arm. He lay on the ground, breathing fast and loud. You've done it, I said. Let me rest a moment. I waited, kneeling beside him. All right, he said. Now for the next bit. Give me a hand, Danny. You'll have to do most of the work from now on. I helped him to keep his balance as he got up onto one good foot. Which side do you want me on? I asked. On my right, he said. Otherwise you'll keep knocking against my bad ankle. I moved up close to his right side and he put both his hands on my shoulders. Go on, Dad, I said. You can lean harder than that. Shine the light forward so we can see where we're going, he said. I did as he asked. He tried a couple of hops on his right foot. All right, he asked. Yes, he said. Holding his left foot just clear of the ground and leaning on me with both hands, He began to hop forward on one leg. I shuffled along beside him, trying to go exactly the speed he wanted. "Say when you want to rest." "Now," he said. We stopped. "I've got to sit down," he said. I helped to lower him to the ground. His left foot dangled helplessly on its broken ankle. Every time it touched the ground, he jumped with pain. I sat beside him on the brown leaves that covered the floor of the wood. Sweat was pouring down his face. "Does it hurt terribly, Dad?" "It does when I hop," he said. "Each time I hop, it jars it." He sat on the ground, resting for several minutes. "Let's try again," he said. I helped him up and off we went. This time I put an arm around his waist to give him extra support. He put his right arm around my shoulders and leaned on me hard. It went better that way. Boy, was he heavy. My legs kept bending and buckling with each hop. Hop, hop, hop. "Keep going," he gasped. "Come on, we can make it." "Where's the hedge?" "There's the hedge," I said, waving the torch. "We're nearly there." Hop, hop, hop. When we reached the head, my legs gave way and we both crashed to the ground. "I'm sorry," I said. "It's okay. Can you help me get through the hedge?" I'm not quite sure how he and I got through the hedge. He crawled a bit and I pulled a bit, and then a little bit when we squeezed, and in through we came, and then out we were on the other side of the track. The tiny car was only yards away. We sat on the grassy bank under the hedge to get a breather. His watch said it was nearly 4 o'clock in the morning. The sun would not be up for another 2 hours, so we had plenty of time. "Shall I drive?" I asked. "You'll have to," he said. "I've only got one foot." I helped him to hop over to the car, and after a bit of a struggle, he managed to get in. His left leg was doubled up underneath his right leg, and the whole thing must have been agony for him. I got into the driver's seat beside him. "The rope," I said. "We left the rope behind." "Forget it. It doesn't matter." I started the motor and switched on the headlamps. I backed the car and turned it round, and soon we were heading downhill on the bumpy track. "Go slowly, Danny," my father said. "Hurts like crazy over the bumps." He had one hand on the wheel, helping to guide the car. We reached the bottom of the track and turned onto the road. "You're doing fine," he said. "Keep going." Now that we were on the main road, I changed into second gear. "Rev her up and go into third," he said. "Do you want me to help you?" "I think I can do it," I said. I changed into third gear. With my father's hands on the wheel, I had no fear of hitting the hedge or anything else. I pressed down hard on the accelerator. The speedometer needle crept up to 40. Something big with headlamps blazing came rushing towards us. "I'll take the wheel," my father said. "Let go of it completely." He kept the little car close in on the side of the road as a huge milk lorry brushed past us. That was the only thing we met all the way home. As we approached the filling station, my father said, "I'll have to go to the hospital for this. It must be set properly and then be put into plaster." "How long will you be into hospital?" "Don't worry, I'll be home before evening." "Will you be able to walk?" "Yes, they fix a metal thing into the plaster. It sticks out underneath the foot. I'll be able to walk on that." "Should we go to the hospital now?" "No," he said. "I'll just lie down on the floor of the workshop and wait until it's time to call Doc Spencer. He'll arrange everything." "Call him now," I said. "No, I don't like waking doctors up at 4:30 in the morning." "We'll call him at 7. "What will you tell him, Dad? I mean, about how it happened?" "I'll tell him the truth," my father said. "Doc Spencer is a friend." We pulled into the filling station, and I parked the car right up against the workshop doors. I helped my father to get out. Then I held him around the waist as he hopped the short distance into the workshop. Inside the workshop, he leaned against the tool bench for support and told me what to do next. First, I spread some sheets of newspaper out over the oily floor. Then I ran to the caravan and fetched 2 blankets and a pillow. I lay one blanket on the floor over the newspaper. I helped my father to lie down on the blanket. Then I put the pillow under his head and I covered him up with the second blanket. Put the phone down here so I can reach it. I did as he asked. Can I get you anything, Dad? What about a hot drink? No, thank you, he said. I mustn't have a thing. I'm going to have an anaesthetic soon, and you mustn't eat or drink anything at all before that. You have something. Go and make yourself some breakfast, and then go to bed. I'd like to wait and hear until the doctor comes, I said. You must be dead tired, Danny. I'm all right, I said. I found a wooden chair and pulled it up near him, and I sat down. He closed his eyes and seemed to be dozing off. My own eyes kept closing too. I couldn't keep them open. I'm sorry about the mess I made of it all, I heard him saying. I must have gone to sleep after that because the next thing I heard was Doc Spence's voice saying to my father, Well, my goodness me, William, what on earth have you been up to? I opened my eyes and I saw the doctor bending down over my father, who was still lying on the floor of the workshop. Very exciting. Oh my goodness. I do hope Danny's father's going to be okay. Oh, dear me, dear me. Well, I hope you enjoyed the chapter. So, chapter 9 tomorrow. And I think we're going to find out a little bit about Doc Spencer because the chapter's called Doc Spencer. So, have a good night. See you tomorrow. Take care. Bye now.